Okay, so decided to do a YouTube channel.
Mhm.
Called it How I Lead. Um, kind of ran with that name. It's how I or you or us together have done things. Um, I think it's kind of an important caveat. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or I don't have any college experience or any professional anything. Um, you, on the other hand, do have some experience and knowledge of things on a professional level where you could give sound advice that somebody could take serious more so than myself.
Mhm.
So, can you tell us first off? I'm Danny, and this is my wife Erica. Can you tell them who you are and what you've been doing, what your credentials are, and why you want to offer help or advice to somebody?
So, I don't know, I have a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm a licensed professional counselor candidate, and I'm also a certified addiction specialist, which I've been working with addictions for about 17 years. Mental health, majority of that just not in a different capacity than I am now. And I don't know, I just want to, I like to help people. I like to help to teach. I like to just offer things that I've done that might help other people.
So, when you say licensed professional counselor candidate, tell me
So
what
I'm
that
working
means.
towards a licensure through the state, and they require a certain number of hours before you can actually be a licensed professional counselor.
Okay. How long have you been doing counseling or stuff in that capacity?
Which I don't know. So
Where did you
addictions.
start and what year when you started helping people and in what capacity?
So I started with addictions in 2006, and I was just like, oh gosh, I don't remember what they called it. It was like a counselor aide. So I just helped the counselors. I just kind of helped in a treatment program. And then as a case manager after that, I did that for a year. And I was a case manager for 4 years in a residential program for women. And then in 2011, I was a certified addiction specialist too, so I could then be an actual sort of addictions counselor. So since 2011, I've been counseling for addictions, which includes mental health. However, not officially
Just
treating
not
mental health.
recognized the way
Yeah,
it probably
not
should be.
yeah, yeah, of course, because that's just they go hand in hand. So yeah, and so I've been doing that since.
Nice. Um, so just kind of a little background on myself again, kind of pointing out how unrelated probably our histories are. My stuff has always been automotive or retail related. I did spend several years in nursing facilities, one of which was for there's so many words mentally handicapped people, people all the way to the point of schizophrenia, Alzheimer's, severe behaviors, working with those people in an institution, all the way to sweeping and mopping floors in institutions. Um,
Cooking.
Definitely did my fair share of cooking, dietary. I was head of dietary as well as environmental services. From there, just started working with automotive stuff, and it started out busting tires, moved into oil changes, selling cars, buying cars at auction. From there, moved into the retail side of automotive parts, managed those stores. And then from there, of course, the pandemic happened. Decided to stay home with our lovely young ones for quite a while. And that's still what I do to this day. So I am a professional housewife. Um, continue to do stuff automotive related, as helping people out with car stuff or just kind of doing whatever people need help out with, and then maintaining our home. Um, so that's just, I guess, in a nutshell, kind of our employment background piece. I don't want to go into too far outside of what our topic today may actually come out to be. which we've got several options. It's kind of got to decide where we want to take this video to, and then of course there'll always be another video we can record for another topic. Um, so this day and age, in your opinion, what is the biggest struggle that you think people our age or even younger? I mean, we're both Gen X. Um, I don't know if we want to go as far as where our kids are at as far as Gen Z, but the next generation under us. So people that would be 25 to 40. What do you think the biggest in your opinion? What's the biggest thing people in that age category struggle with? Most commonly, maybe should say.
Mm, I don't know. It could be a number of things, but I don't know. The biggest thing I've heard lately is that people's frustration with the newer generation and their lack of social skills because of social media, Facebook, Instagram,
Fair enough.
TikTok, things like that. Like they
So,
just have a hard time.
and do you feel like, I mean, and people in our generation, Gen X, have an issue with that. You know, a lot of people our age do sit with their faces stuffed in phones. I personally don't feel like it's as much so as a generation under us. So,
Right.
do you feel like Gen Y and Gen Z both struggle with that, or do you think one of those, like say Gen Y, we were discussing, have an issue with the younger people under them with that addiction, or do you suppose even people a lot in Gen Y struggle with it, and that's what their struggle is with themselves, an addiction to it, or seeing people around them when they want to communicate and have no social skills.
I think it's more that. Like I think I don't know because we talk a lot. Like you and I talk a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I tend to gravitate towards friends that are older than me or as close to my age as possible, so that way they actually have those communication skills. Like younger, even 30s is still, I think, I struggle communicating with those folks too, just because they don't have as many
Well, it is interesting.
skills.
Even you go to a restaurant or standing in line at Walmart, and
Yeah,
that's where nobody talks. Nobody just says, "Hey, how are you today?" Or
I know. And the ones who do are like older than me or close to our age,
and
or,
they get dirty looks for asking.
yeah. And like, I have a great time talking to those people because my phone's stuffed in my purse or my pocket or something, and everybody else is, and so, yeah, I think I know that's my biggest thing is just communicating with others. And I tend to gravitate towards
Absolutely.
older people.
And me personally, I don't know if I would call it so much an addiction, maybe, but it's YouTube. That's my addiction with the phone. I don't text, I don't call, I don't use it much for the internet. I just enjoy watching videos, and my selection is homesteading videos or gun tubers or
But I think that's the thing, though, is that a lot of people who are, I guess, if you want to say addicted to like social media and things like that, I don't necessarily. Now, if you're just watching random stupid stuff on YouTube, that, yeah, that, and it doesn't, but the stuff that you watch and a lot of people that I know watch, it's more educational. Like, it's not just for entertainment purposes, it has a point to it. Like the news or those homesteading videos, I'm sure you learn something on occasion. So, like, it's a little different.
so. Do you think? And this just popped into my head. Do you think the addiction is people watching, say, videos on YouTube or watching? I don't know. Instagram is what Reels. Facebook is
Yeah.
has their short videos anyway, live streams, videos, anything that are on any of these. Do you think the addiction is more of that, or is it more of a person with their own page looking for people to like them or pay attention to them?
Ask that question again. Like, what do you mean?
So there's two sides in my mind. I mean, I don't use social media. I watch YouTube. But in my mind, there's two sides of social media. There's the side of you engaging with other people,
Mm-hmm.
watching reading the stuff they post on Facebook or videos or YouTube videos or Instagram. It's not even pictures on Instagram, I guess anymore. It's a lot of other
Yeah, it's sort of
things.
reels now.
Um,
But there is
Watching
pictures.
TikTok videos versus having your page in those and creating the content to get people to engage with you. Is it an addiction? I mean, and it clearly is. I guess being an addiction, watching tons and tons and tons of TikTok videos and just absorbing that and nothing else around you, or what about the flip side where you're addicted to people liking your content or praising you as a god or goddess in the world rather than just a normal human that we
I
all
think
are?
it's a lot of both, but I think to it depends on your definition of addiction and what that means. I mean, addiction to me is like an unhealthy thing. Does that make sense? Like it's not like if you can go and watch and do all those things, but then when other stuff comes up, you can just set it down and you're good to go. And so it doesn't matter. You could take it or leave it. That's not an addiction to me.
Okay.
And that's how yours is. Like if we have things to do, your phone's nowhere to be found.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just how it is. And that's not what I see with a lot of the younger generation, I guess, is like
so you think it has become a full
some of them, yeah,
for some people a full blown
and
addiction?
some of them it is yeah, they're interacting with other people on there, but at the same time they're posting pictures and things about them just so that they get the recognition or the validation from other people
Why do you
instead
think?
of going out and making friends.
And why do people need that validation online rather than going out and making friends? I mean, I don't know. I personally don't understand it. I'd rather go look somebody in the face. I hate
Oh,
texting.
I'd
I'd rather call somebody on the phone even over
yeah.
texting.
So I don't fully understand either because I'm not one who really needs a whole lot of validation anyway. So I don't post a ton of things on Facebook. Even when I do,
If I post something,
yeah,
it's just to
it's
get
like
grabs from
kids
people.
or it's like really nothing really, So and like the stuff that I look at on Facebook, it's a lot of crochet and face painting and things like that. So it's really not I'm not really paying attention to other people's posts and validating or doing any of that either. That in that respect. So unless it's kids, of course, and our kids and they're posting things, and I kind of pay attention to that. But it's how we keep up with them. So I don't know. I don't fully understand it either. Like why people need that, but
And I try and think back when we were kids, there was even such thing as a cell phone until the late 80s when it was the big brick phones. They were in cars that actually had cords on them.
Yeah.
I remember actually purchasing my first cell phone, and I was probably 19 or 20 years old, and it was a flip phone that you could go on the internet with, but at that point it was just words on the screen that you had to scroll through and click links. There was no images, there was no pictures. You could pull up a website and you could read the information off the internet, but there was no visual. Um, why? I mean, I don't know. I'll throw out my opinion. I think one thing that creates part of the social media issue, and this is a controversial just my concept of it, is poor parenting. I think it's parents throwing a phone or a tablet or a computer or a television in front of a child, and from very very young age, these children are brought up to believe that's the babysitter, that's the Tonka truck, that's the Legos, that is, rather than picking up Lego blocks and actually something tangible and building something, there's an app for that. It's Minecraft,
Well,
same thing. Lego blocks building a world, and there's
when we were kids, it was Disney movies, which not to say that that was any better necessarily than handing a child a phone or a tablet. It's the same concept, just so much bigger now, and so many more parents are doing that instead of actually interacting. Which I think we talked about this the other day, but interaction with your kiddos is much more meaningful and productive than
why wouldn't a parent want to actually spend the time with their kids as we did with ours raising them. I mean, of course, we didn't get together until both of our kids, all five of the kids were of age, older. I don't know where would they be. Gabe would have been an adolescent, I suppose, a juvenile,
He was middle school, so I
and
was an
Grayson
adolescent.
was kindergarten.
Yes.
So a toddler, I don't. So at that age, I personally had always done different with the kids. I did tummy time with them. I did, you know, mirrors with them. I did blocks with them. I did, colors, books. Even when the kids were just old enough to actually visualize and recognize a face in front of them, I was reading books at nighttime, speaking, articulating words. what's
I don't.
what's changed in
So
society where parents don't do that as much? Maybe they read to their kids at night. I mean, I'm not saying they don't, but where did the daytime interaction go? Do people have to work more, or is it just a lost art of wanting to spend time with your kids?
well, that's a loaded question. I don't know. My take on it, I guess, having been a single parent for a number of years, 10, 11 years, and having little ones, like Lily was 8 months old. And I still spent all of that time doing all those things with them. But I know, like, for me as a single parent, that was hard. It was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of work. And you know how hard it is just to take care of a house when there's two of us. I mean, let alone when there's just one person. So that I know is difficult. And yes, I had to work a lot, of course.
Parenthood's not free.
Right. And so even then, I still spend as much time as possible on my off time with the kids. I just think that, yes, over time, because of course, the way the world has gone, the economy, everything over just even the last 10, 12 years has gotten so much more expensive that, yes, parents have to work more and you have to have two parents working majority of the time. You have to have two parents working in the home. Like we've managed, but not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can do that. And so I think that's part of it is people are tired and yes, you have kiddos and I know a lot of people who still spend that kind of time with their kids, but it's not the majority.
Sure.
And I think it's just they're tired too, and kids are tired too. And the easy thing to do is just put them in front of the TV or give them a tablet because then everybody gets some quiet time.
So is it wrong to tell your kid no, you can't have a phone?
I never felt like it was.
But you would be the most
Oh
awful,
yeah,
ruthless
we were the
parent
worst
if you
parents
did.
when we did that though. I mean, and
Mhm.
that's
But is it wrong? Are
no.
you removing something important from your child's life by telling them, no, you can't have a phone?
I don't feel like I don't feel like I mean, when we did that, I didn't feel like we were. I felt like that was just setting the tone for what priorities really were. And that was family. And that was family time or being outside, playing, being kids, not being adults. Like, because all the stuff that comes with social media, too, they grow up too quickly. Because then they're stressed about
Of course, we didn't
all
just
that
straight up
stuff.
tell our kids they couldn't have a phone.
Right.
We did. And so here's a how I or we, how did we handle that? Um, Obviously, we never purchased or gave our kids a phone. We
Right.
A tablet. I don't know. Did we do? Yeah, I think we
Well,
did
we did
a
with
little
Gabe, but
bit.
that was a little different situation. But yes, I think the kids they had like the DS or the tablet kind of
Hmm.
thing. But
But we never told them no, they couldn't have
right.
one. So how did we handle that? So I actually remember, and I think the first conversation regarding that was actually with Lily,
Hmm.
and it was, if I was a teenage girl your age, a phone would be fantastic. Absolutely, everybody's got one, and I absolutely understand that your desire, not even going to use the word need, your desire to have that.
Hmm.
So, I think one of my favorite responses was, well, then, of course, if you can pay for that by the time we hit the checkout stand up front, that is yours. You can have that. wasn't taken well, but at some point it did sink in with all of the kids. If they could acquire legally a cellular telephone, absolutely you can have that. The one caveat that was there is it could not be a phone that was active. It could not have a phone number. It couldn't have service. Um, of course, all these apps are out there where they can make phone calls or texts or all that stuff
Right.
off of Wi-Fi.
Right.
Um, and so our next response was, well, as soon as you can pay for Wi-Fi, you absolutely can have Wi-Fi for your phone. So there was no Wi-Fi provided. There was no phone provided. There was no service provided. And if they wanted a phone, they had to acquire it legally their own way. And lo and behold, they all did. They all managed to get their hands on a phone, and they all had them. Um, but then, of course, there was rules surrounding that. No phones at the table. No phones during chore time. It was an earned privilege. Of course, it was their device, but
Right.
we also made it clear with our kids that as long as they were under 18, anything that belonged to them by law and legally belonged to you and I. It was not theirs, even if they acquired it. It belonged to us. Now, of course, we absolutely respected as much as possible anything that was theirs that they had. Certain rules were broken, and the devices were taken, and we did certain things. So I guess the next question would be: did our kids turn out terrible for that? I mean, and we can go over what a couple of them that are grown and out and how they're doing, and we can go into that. But good or bad or ugly, um, did our kids turn out terrible?
No, I they didn't. And I think
Did they lose a birthday?
no, they didn't. Um,
Did they turn
Honestly,
into
I
green and
think
incredible Hulks?
no, I think it. I don't know. Sometimes it probably felt that way, especially in middle school. That was a little rough, but no. And I know even with the older ones, I think they've started to be like, "Hey, thanks for raising me
So
the
you
way
think there is actually some appreciation
that you did."
surrounding it?
Well, and I say that because I just saw a post on Facebook from Lily yesterday that said, "I really appreciate the way my mom raised me when I get in the same room with other girls my age," because she sees now the difference,
and it's genuine. I believe that's genuine.
in how we raise them,
Mhm.
in comparison to how a lot of their friends were raised.
Absolutely.
And being given all of those things, just if they wanted it, they got it. And our kids had to earn all of those things, and or like you said, pay for them.
Or even as another example, shoes.
Yeah.
They wanted Jordans. They had to be $300 pair of shoes. When we have 5 kids and two of us, there was not going to be $300 pair of shoes. We never told the kids, no, you can't have Jordans.
Right.
We actually offered a couple of solutions, and that was we can go store X, Y, or Z, and we will buy you a $50 pair of shoes once or twice a year, depending on activity, sports, whatever whatever they had going on. Or they could come up with the difference, and we would pay for $50 of the Jordans, and they come up with the difference. Or they could continue to wear the shoes they've been wearing and do without. They were never told, and I think that's something that is probably quite a bit different between. I don't know. I don't want to overstep. It's different from what I've seen a lot of other parents do. Is it's either no, or it's jumping. I'm asking you how high. There's no in between. Very, very rarely did we tell our kids no, they couldn't have something or they couldn't do something.
I think we tried to give choices and options as much as possible.
Or a way to achieve anything they wanted to do.
Right, but I think that was part of the learning process, though. Like not just yeah, in life they're going to be told no sometimes, and but I think they've learned to handle that better
Hmm.
because of the way we did things.
And I think it's they've
And same
understood
for
that.
themselves though too, because then there was those choices, there were
Hmm.
those options. They could then come up with a solution too. Technically, they were coming up with a solution themselves.
Or even alternatives to their desire that they could reach. Maybe it's not a new Corvette, instead it's a 20-year-old car. But either way, you've got a car, um, and they're okay with it.
Yeah.
So just to kind of go into that, talking about how our kids are doing, we'll briefly touch on Gabe, because his situation is clearly different. Don't want to go deep into that, but I'll let you, with his age and just a synopsis, maybe of diagnosis or whatever you want to share with that at this
Sure.
moment and where he is and what he's doing,
So
and
I
then
don't
we'll
know. Did
move
we
down.
mention before that there's 5 kiddos between the two of us?
We've said it a couple
So
times.
okay, I thought we
No
had,
kids
but
between us, but 5 kids between
yes,
us.
altogether there's 5 of them that we have raised to some degree. So, Gabe is the oldest, and he is
Almost
going to
23 next January, right?
22.
22?
22 in January. Yeah,
Because he was born in 01.
So we're coming. Oh, is he gonna be 23? Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Goodness, that makes me feel old. But yes, he is gonna be 23. Gabriel has been diagnosed with autism, while pervasive developmental disability, which is now just autism spectrum disorder, intellectual disability, sensory integration disorder, psychosis, and now OCD. So,
And I imagine there's a lot of people that hopefully will come across our videos that have similar children,
right.
a spouse, an aunt, an uncle, a niece, a nephew that have questions about that. And I definitely want to go into that at some
Yes.
point. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
hopefully we can share and help with that as well. And he's in.
So he lives in Peyton in a host home with a very wonderful couple who has become family. Essentially, they are amazing, and we couldn't have asked for anybody better to take care of him than them, because they're a lot like us. They advocate for him, make sure his meds are correct, so that then we can just be parents, which is amazing for me.
I think
I
it's
love
very
that.
important for us to have that break.
Hardest decision ever made, I think, even for you having come in a little while later. It was still a very hard decision to make, but he is
There was
thriving.
tears shed over him moving for sure.
And he is thriving. He is doing amazing. He is in a day program. He's working with job coaching, and he's very proud of that, which is all that we could have asked for, was that he was had some sort of independence for himself, just away from us. So he's doing great.
And then the next in line is Lily. Just turned 20.
I know. Goodness, I know. Lily's 20.
She was 11 when I met her, I believe, for maybe 10, 11, something like that.
Yeah, she was still like 5th grade, I think. You're right. Goodness.
She was still in elementary. It was her last year of elementary,
yeah,
I
so
believe.
she was a 5th grader, so she was right around. Well, yeah.
She was in off
almost
still
11,
at that point, right?
or had just turned 11 when
Because it was
we all met.
October,
Yeah.
November of 04.
No,
03. 14. Yeah, I'm 10 years off.
You are.
Of 14.
So 14. Yes. So yeah, she was just getting ready to go to middle school. So she's doing great. She is living with her boyfriend in an apartment downtown, and is working full time, and he's working, and they're figuring out what it's like to be adults, and it's fun to watch because I remember.
And she has a cell phone.
She has a cell phone in
and
a
she
car,
pays for it.
And it's realizing that
she has an appreciation
yes,
for having it.
Absolutely, because she knows now what it's like and why maybe as parents, when she was begging for a cell phone, it didn't make sense. It wasn't realistic. It wasn't necessary. So she's figuring that out, I think.
is working full time, actually getting paid very well.
Hmm. And doing really good. I mean, honestly, for her age, she's really.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, with that post, I just had to laugh because it was just like she's seeing, and she has said a number of times he thinks like because she sees kids her age and she doesn't understand why their work ethic or their responsibilities aren't in line with hers. And I'm like, but you're a little more mature at 20 than some of these other kids, and it's only because of the way you were
Well,
raised.
and leaving any names out, she did actually have a roommate.
Hmm.
That the struggle was real.
Yes.
It was real. Um, Correct me if I have any wrong parts, and definitely add to it. But initially, her and this friend went in on this apartment that she's staying in. They each paid half the security deposit, I believe. They paid half the first month's rent and moved in. Uh, Not real far in, 4 or 5 months in, maybe.
Five,
This
probably.
friend just left. Gets a hold of her the last day or two or three of the month and said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to go live in my car now because I don't want to pay anymore to have a place to stay because I don't stay there anyway. I'm at friend's house, parents' house, the city park. I don't know
Right.
anywhere but the home."
Right.
And but there's a year-long lease signed for this apartment, and I know she had talked to us and was just beside herself that
How could somebody do that? Like, she
it's
just
like, but you
couldn't
signed the
comprehend.
paperwork.
Yeah,
You agreed. You
that was
signed, and you're letting me know with a 3 day notice.
right.
And she didn't have the money to pay the
Right.
full rent. Um, but she figured it out,
Hmm.
and she paid the full month's rent, and she still has the apartment.
Yeah, they
And
signed a new lease that was,
with her
with
and her
her.
boyfriend now,
Yes,
and he's
and
working,
yep.
and they figured out two incomes are required. When
For a
when
little
you're
for
not
a while.
making
Yeah.
huge money
Hmm.
at that point, you're starting out. Two incomes are required. Um, so, and I know that was one of the things she's like, I don't understand how anybody would even that.
To think to
How do
just
you even
yeah,
comprehend somebody to say that?
yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm sure it's something that's rampant. I know back in the day when I was renting apartments, it would have been like, sure, you can break the lease, but you're still going to pay rent until I re-rent the place.
Hmm.
But this friend got off real easy. Just was allowed to just sign off the lease and walk away, and that may
Which
be.
still is surprising to me too, because
I don't.
that's not how I remember renting. But that's I don't know. I mean, of course, it's COVID though. There's been so many things, and I don't know. It may be because there was two willing people to live there and sign and do, but I don't.
So next in line is my oldest. Um, in more ways than one, probably a mini me.
Hmm.
Stubborn, willing to say whatever you think. Not shy about a whole lot of anything. Will
Which has
be
kind of been a blessing at the
he
same
will be
time.
19 in March. He is 18. Um, Graduated school in Florida. So my ex-wife lives in Florida, and all three of my kids, we went ahead and decided to let them spend some time down there with their mom, which we both felt was very important. Not going to go into any details about that. Decided they should go spend some time. He went down, did do his last year there, played football there for a little bit, played football here, lettered a little bit,
Good for you.
basketball and football, got letters. Um, Not the greatest in school. For him, the struggle was
It
real
was, but
in
he did.
school.
That's why I said overall, though he did very well. Like
He's a
I
last
mean,
minute guy. He pulls it out of his ass in the last minute. I just
but he did.
I did the same thing all through school. Is living with his girlfriend with her dad. Is working full time. His girlfriend is working part time. Supposedly, as I understand, is going to start
Should be
working
any
full
time,
time
right?
at the same place where he's working. about to be parents in March, close to his birthday.
Mhm.
So we get to be grandparents. We get to spoil a kid and then return it. No strings attached.
Right.
But overall, doing very well.
Yeah.
Doing very well. Has had struggles with employment. You know, I did learn. My opinion doesn't matter. My feelings don't matter. If they're paying me, I follow the rules unless they're illegal. At that point, I wasn't expecting to follow the rules.
Right.
Doing very well, and he does have a cell phone, and he does pay for it, and I think he appreciates having a cell phone. Did buy a car, cash out of his pocket,
Yep.
albeit it was a cheaper car, but a very nice car for the price. Honestly, I think he, you know,
Did very well.
could have got double the money out of the car, but he got the hookup. Doing real well. So the last two, Sheldon and Grayson, in Florida with their mom. So we'll start at the bottom of that one. Grayson was a straight A student here. He's an A B student there. He is getting higher up in the classes. Does enjoy school.
Yeah, he's in middle school now.
He does enjoy school, so and he still enjoys it.
Mhm.
So for his grades to dip a little bit is not at all surprising, but he's still maintaining
Yeah, I'm curious,
decent
honestly, when he
grades.
gets to high school to see how that goes, because he may just go back to having really good grades again. I'm not that A's, B's are bad, but I'm just saying.
Well, and Florida offers that 18 and out program.
Right, and so I'm curious to see when he gets to high school if that doesn't go back the other direction, just because middle school tends to be that area where
Transition.
yeah, they struggle a little more.
No
All the
recess
way around.
anymore.
Right. It would be a big kid no.
And then there's Sheldon, about to be 17. He believe one more year, 4 of the 5 kids are all adults. Um, Doing well. Struggling a little bit in school, but he did decide to do the 18 and out program, which it just removes a lot of the electives because they're not they're not required to be educated. So it just removes the electives and just leaves your core classes. Because he did pretty poor, and then when he was here over the summer, actually, as he said, it just kind of struck him that he's got to get his shit together. He's got to get on it. He's got to graduate. He's held back twice, a long time ago, even before they had come here to stay with us,
Right.
which put him to not graduate till he was almost 21, and he didn't want to do that. So he
Yeah,
wanted to
that's been a rough
graduate
thing
before
for
he
him.
was 20, and then he figured out if he didn't get his stuff together, and it just like overnight a maturity just clicked, and I'm gonna do it. And he went to summer school on his own accord and finished all of his classes and got his credits for that freshman year. So he has, or was that his 8th grade year? Because he's doing 9th, 10th, and 11th. So he's in 9th grade this year. So he's doing 9th, 10th, and 11th, and he'll graduate as long as he passes all 18 of those credits. So he just decided in order to go into high school, he had to complete those classes. He's been held back twice, so by federal education standards, he can't be held back a third time because he would essentially have to be removed from the school district before he has the opportunity to graduate because you can't go to public education and primary before or past the age of 21.
Right.
So he was on a losing battle. Figured it out. And so he's doing well. Got him a camera. He wants to pursue photography. Never saw that coming.
No.
But he wanted to be a vet. And then he wanted to be.
He has so many interests, though. That's the thing. Like,
he wanted to be a pastor. He wanted to be an astronaut. And there was a third one. But we decided when he was younger he could go. He wanted to be in the Army.
Right.
So we're like, hey, that's cool. So you could be a military preacher on the International Space Station and broadcast it to the entire world. Then he could meet all 3 goals.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I do remember that.
Don't know that he'll get there, but That was some of his big stuff that he wanted to do when he was younger.
But I think he's just figuring it out too.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, he just got out of middle school, but that doesn't mean, you know.
So we've got about 15 minutes or so left. So let's open this can of worms, and then I think it's something we can actually run into next
Okay.
time. Struggles with raising the kids, though. So absolutely, by no means was raising our kids any different, any easier, or any better than anybody else on this planet. Would you agree?
Yes. Mhm.
And I don't want anybody to ever get the concept that we did some magical thing that has turned our kids into at 18 they're moved out, they're working, they're paying their own bills, they're doing there wasn't anything except for what was that program called?
Multi-systemic
Multi
therapy.
MST.
MST, multi-systemic therapy.
Okay, so in a brief nutshell, what is that from a psychological standpoint?
It is, I don't know, the way that it works is, the counselor comes in and actually works with the parents directly or the adults that are caring for the child who's struggling to essentially have better communication and better outcomes. Help the parents figure out how to.
So
I hate to say change behavior because that's not really, but that's ultimately what it is.
change
But
their behavior.
you're changing parents' behavior to better communicate and work with your child to get the desired results, I guess is the best way to put that.
So
It was a lot of work.
does it work?
Absolutely.
Would you recommend?
Yes, absolutely. Did it suck sometimes? Absolutely. Because as parents, we had to do a lot of work,
a lot of soul searching
together and like separately, and like it was a lot of work on our end. Um, but it was so worth it. It worked, and yes, I recommend it.
So, in a nutshell, what it was for me, Love and Logic is very similar. Um,
Well, they use a lot of the same concepts, is why.
And it, to put it into a sentence, you as a parent are not responsible for what your kid does. That sounds terrible because you are. Legally, you are responsible for what your kid does. Outside of a legal standpoint, you are not responsible for what your kid does. It doesn't matter how much you scream at your child, yell at your child, take their phone away, take their video games away, ground them to their house. If they want to leave the house, they're going to walk out the door, break a window, walk out the window. If they want to smoke weed, they're gonna smoke weed.
They're still an individual.
You cannot, maybe saying you're not responsible for what your child does, I think makes sense. But even moreover, you cannot control your child's behavior, whether it's physical or a behavior or what it is. And even mentally, you can't control your child. But through MST, we really learned how to mentally control our children.
Right, but I think what I learned from it was that it wasn't so much that we were controlling them, so much as what we controlled what we
exactly.
did, and how we responded to the things that they did.
And their phrase in MST was, "If you, then I."
Right, because we're models. We're modeling the behavior that we're wanting, and that's what I learned the most was like, "Ooh, yeah," like the response that I gave was not appropriate. Like it was back on me, not so much the kiddo. And then it makes sense to me though why that kiddo acted that way. Like that makes perfect sense. I would have felt that way. I would have acted like that.
And I don't. Again, this is such a broad topic.
Sure.
I mean, we honestly can go on as long as we want to. It doesn't matter. But I don't want the video to be super duper long. Just kind of briefly, a couple of things was one of the things they had us do was the phase program that we on our own called it the phase program and created the program and wrote the consequences, wrote the rules, wrote everything. And they actually really enjoyed it. And Courtney has offered it to several other people.
We could probably do a little video just on that
Absolutely.
because I think it's.
But and
helpful.
what it all came down to was if you, then I. It's seriously that is the biggest piece I took
Well,
away
and it
from
laid
it.
out expectations for the kids and for us. Like we knew they knew what the expectations were.
So we had a list of like 300 rules, right?
No.
It was a list of like five.
Yeah.
It was like 5 rules.
So much more manageable.
And the consequences were like 17 things, right? No, it was seriously like 5 things. That's all it. That's all it took, and it was just a simple matter of when you tell your child what the expectations for the home are. Do you have to give them a long dissertation?
No.
Do you have to explain why?
No.
Or do you just tell them the rules of the house are A, B, C, D, E?
Yep.
If you break A, B, C, D, E, then you will A, B, C, D, E. No, I will A, B, C, D, E.
Yep.
I'm not. We never told our kids what to do.
And like you said, we very rarely told them no.
Didn't have to tell them no either.
Because they knew what the expectation was. They knew if this happened, that was going to happen. Like they already knew this was the little
and I guess
roadmap that we were taking.
And this is where we get to leave them on a cliffhanger. I'm loving the concept. If we gave the child a consequence, did we force them to follow the consequence?
No.
It was their choice whether they wanted to follow the consequence or not. Now, if they didn't follow that consequence,
back to the roadmap,
there was another consequence, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now you don't have this, and because of that, you don't have this. Now, if you just simply, and I know our lowest one, seriously, our consequences were geo boundary. That was really like our entire consequence was you're in your room, you're in the house, you're in the yard, you're in these blocks, you got almost the whole city. That was seriously what the consequences were. Or you could have friends over, or you could go to a friend's house.
Or you only got your phone till bedtime, or
and it was just based on the FACE program.
Yeah.
Like, and if they didn't come home after school, did we go hunt them down like rabid dogs? No. So when they came in, I know several times Danny was the notorious one for being late. Was, hey, what time is it, dude? Oh, it's 4 o'clock, and you were supposed to be home at 3:30. Oh, how'd you know? So you know where you stand on the FACE chart. Yes.
And that was it.
That was as far as it ever went. And honestly, he followed where he was at on the FACE chart until he phased back up. It was as simple as that. It was
his choice.
And once he got tired of it, he just stopped doing that negative behavior.
Whatever he was doing was worth it to him that day, then he knew when he got home that's what it was, and he just dealt with it. He handled it. Yeah, that was amazing.
So I definitely want to offer, and that's assuming anybody's watching this video, and we'll come up with a great title that maybe will get it out there in the algorithm for people to see. And of course, if people subscribe or like the video, then it's shown to more and more people, and we hope anybody that watches it does do that. Or somebody just took a takeaway from us sitting here BSing for 45 to 50 minutes. But one thing you brought up is questions. If people have questions, you can read the comments as well as I can and do our best to respond. Obviously, if we turn into this, 150,000 subscriber channel, we're not going to respond to all comments.
Oh, yeah, no.
And any comment or question that is deserving or would require a video on it, we're happy to sit and BS back and forth about that as well. So that's kind of the gist and the goal. That kind of gives our history a little bit out there in a nutshell. Don't know how often we're going to upload, but hopefully it'll be pretty free. I would say probably not less than once a week, maybe hoping twice a week.
Yeah.
Just to get some stuff out there. But I'm not done talking, but we're gonna have to be.
I know.
We're gonna have to be done for the video this time, and I think next week kind of pick up there on the MST and what it did, Love and Logic, and then there was that other program that I had
And I can never remember the name of that
but
one.
I'll look it up. And it was very, very similar in the same thing. And I know a lot of people we've shared
There's
MST
also
with have
like,
looked at us like we're batshit crazy. Like that doesn't work if you don't give your kids consequences, or how dare you not give your kid everything they want? And then complain
well, there's
about a
also
kid's
another
behavior.
program called Beyond Consequences, which is a
Mm-hmm.
really good one as well. That I learned during internship. So that's also one that the MST program uses a lot, actually.
So
But it's a lot like,
multi-system therapy
mhm.
for anybody wondering again what
multi.
MST is, and hopefully somebody, if somebody's curious, an institution around them offers it, then they can look
Oh, it's
into
pretty
it.
widespread now. So yeah, I mean, and if that is a question, that's always it's really easy to just kind of
And then the Love and Logic,
look
and
it up.
then Love and Logic, there is two. There's one
Yeah.
for I think it's like 12 and under, and then the other one, or maybe it's 10 and under,
Well,
and
they
then
actually
10 and
have
up.
like three. They have
So they have three
the
now.
0 to like 7 or 8, and then they have like 8 to 12. But they also have for children with disabilities.
So there's a new one even with that.
Because I took that one when Gabe was little. There was
Oh,
one.
so it's been out for a while.
It's been out for a
Good,
while.
good, good.
So there are those few. There's variations,
And
but
then
yes, it's still essentially the same.
I will have to hopefully remember to look up with that other
Yeah.
one that I don't remember who we even gave it to,
I
but
don't either, but
I'll
don't remember.
it won't be hard to figure out. And then the other one you said
Beyond Consequences.
Beyond Consequences. So if anybody look those up, I'm sure there are ones you can even pay for and just take. Well, I know Love and Logic you have to take from a certified person. I believe. I don't think you
But
can
I
just
think they offer some
purchase the
online
curriculum.
stuff now. Since COVID, of course, there's a lot of like Zoom stuff and like online trainings and things like that. So
And maybe,
there's a lot of agencies that do it now through Zoom as well.
maybe one of these days we can get some of the kids to come sit and talk about stuff. Just whatever.
Maybe even talk
So,
about what they thought about it.
now Danny hated it
I know.
because he was the one that was always right there in
Lily
the room
wasn't a
while we
big
were
fan,
talking.
but I think she is now.
She
so.
hid. She hid in the room. She didn't sit there and listen to what we were saying
Sure.
about
right.
her. But all right. So I don't know. This is absolutely fun. I can't wait to do it again. But okay, we're all set, and we will pick it up a couple days or a week or something like that.
Good.